Imagine a world where the atom remained a philosophical concept, its immense power locked away forever. For over a century, the discovery of nuclear power has been a defining force in our world, a source of both immense hope and unimaginable terror. It gave us a new, nearly limitless source of energy, and it gave us the ability to destroy ourselves in a single, fiery flash. It has shaped our politics, our economies, and our very sense of security. But what if that immense power was never unlocked? What if the secrets of the atom remained a mystery to humanity? This is not a simple tale of a world without nuclear weapons. It is a deep, unflinching look into a different kind of human history, one where the energy crisis never had a solution, where the balance of power was determined by oil and coal, and where the course of human destiny was fundamentally rewritten. This is a story of a future without the atom. The most immediate and dramatic consequence of a world without nuclear power would be a permanent and devastating energy crisis. In our timeline, nuclear power provides a significant portion of the world's electricity, a clean and powerful alternative to fossil fuels. In this alternate world, that alternative never exists. The world's energy needs would have to be met entirely by fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. This would lead to a world that is far more polluted, with a sky choked with smog and an atmosphere thick with carbon emissions. The concept of climate change, which in our world is a slow-moving crisis, would be a much more immediate and a much more terrifying reality. The world would be a place of permanent ecological degradation, a world that is constantly struggling to breathe. The global economy would be a beast we can barely comprehend. The price of oil would be the single most important factor in the global economy, and the nations that control that oil would be the most powerful on Earth. The Middle East would be an unchallenged global hegemon, wielding its immense wealth and power to shape the course of world events. The economies of the West and Asia, which are dependent on oil, would be in a constant state of flux, their fortunes tied to the whims of a few powerful nations. The world would be a place of endless resource wars, of a constant struggle for control over the last remaining pools of oil. The concept of a stable global economy would be a foreign one. War, too, would be fundamentally different. The Cold War, which in our world was a terrifying dance of nuclear brinkmanship, would be a much different and a much more limited affair. The United States and the Soviet Union would still be ideological rivals, but their rivalry would be in the form of conventional warfare, of a constant struggle for global influence. The terrifying specter of mutually assured destruction, the idea that a single act of aggression could lead to the annihilation of all humanity, would be absent. The world would be a more dangerous and a more unpredictable place, as there would be no single, terrifying deterrent to prevent a full-scale, global war. The course of the 20th and 21st centuries would be a much more bloody and a much more brutal one. But this does not mean the world would be less innovative. The immense resources and intellectual capital that in our world were poured into military nuclear research would be redirected to other fields. The world's brightest minds would be dedicated to finding new forms of energy, new ways to power our cities, and new ways to solve the ecological crisis. The field of solar power, of wind power, and of other renewable energy sources would be a much more advanced and a much more powerful one. The world would be a place of a different kind of innovation, one that was focused not on a single, powerful energy source, but on 1,000 different, smaller solutions. The social and cultural implications would be monumental. The concept of a nuclear family, which in our world was born from the fear of a nuclear holocaust, would be absent. The culture of the 20th century, with its constant fear of the end of the world, would be replaced by a different kind of anxiety, a fear of a slow, creeping ecological collapse. The art, the music, and the literature of this alternate world would be a reflection of this different kind of struggle. The world would be a place of a different kind of philosophy, one that was focused not on the end of the world, but on the struggle for a clean, sustainable future. So, in the end, what if nuclear power was never discovered? The world would be a more dangerous, a more unpredictable, and a more polluted place. We would lose the clean, efficient power that nuclear energy provides, the terrifying deterrent that prevented a global war, and the scientific breakthroughs that were a direct result of nuclear research. We would gain a world that is more dependent on a finite, polluting resource, a world that is constantly teetering on the brink of a new kind of war, and a world that is forever struggling to save itself from its own ecological destruction. It would be a world that is less secure, less predictable, and a much more dangerous one. The what-ifs are endless. We've explored a world without nuclear power, but what other scientific discovery do you think has had the greatest impact on human history? Do you think a world without nuclear weapons would be a more peaceful one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to keep exploring how our world could be different, be sure to like this video, subscribe to Timeline Shift, and get ready for our next adventure.